Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee here. Friday, October 26, 2018, and I'm freezing in here again. The actual temperature is up 2 degrees. It was 59, and now it has hit 61. And boy, William Huber, you hit Super Chat early. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That'll at least get me a couple of hot chocolates to keep myself warm in here. We've got a bit of an orthodox nor'easter that's going to be impacting the mid-Atlantic, the northern mid-Atlantic, and up into part of the northeast. I say unorthodox only in the sense that it's not where we've got this sort of wrapped up low. It's not like we have this really intense low pressure system that is moving up. The pressures in this low are not really that low. They're down to about 998-ish, or will be down to about a 998 millibar low. It's the fact that we've got this very strong 1030 millibar high that's going to be sitting over the southwestern part of Nova Scotia tomorrow morning at the same time that the low is off the New Jersey coast. And basically, you're just going to have a pinched pressure gradient that's going to produce some 50-mile-an-hour plus winds in parts of coastal New Jersey and for parts of Long Island and southern New England. So we've got that. We've also got winter weather advisories up tonight, and not just in Maine, by the way, but just showing you on the warnings and watches map some patchy winter weather advisories that have gone up for the Catskills and in places really not that too far away from the coast, relatively speaking, just a couple of hours drive. But Sullivan County on up into Delaware County. But this is mainly for about elevations above 1,500, 2,000 feet, where there could be a coating to a couple of inches of snow. And also up in northern New Hampshire and the northern half of Maine, where there will be a bit more out of this. And the first little patch there in southern Vermont. There's going to be some elevation-driven wet snows that are going to amount to several inches or more. And in fact, it would not at all shock me after this is all said and done, where somebody up in the mountains in upstate New York or in the elevated areas up in central and in central New England, that somebody winds up with a nice surprise out of this. Early snows are almost impossible to forecast, by the way. They are just so incredibly difficult because you're dealing with something that is so totally out of the element with regards to the time of year, and you see it so infrequently that, at least from a forecast standpoint, you don't really have a lot of experience in how to handle it, so you're basically just left to guess at it. Certainly with the dynamic nature of the atmosphere that we're dealing with this strong upper trough that's lifting northward, and the probability that you'll see some thunderstorms and some convective stuff going on here, that you get that to hold together as it moves further north, you're going to wind up seeing precipitation falling through a dynamically cooled atmosphere. And you throw in a little elevation to that, 1,000 feet up, 1,500 feet up, and yeah, somebody's going to wind up with some big snows. I got the WPC forecast, rainfall forecast, which takes us into Friday. There is going to be probably some wet weather toward the end of next week, so this is not entirely front-end loaded, but to a large extent it is. I figured I'd bring it up early, showing a fairly large area that is going to be impacted by rain in the next 7 days, covering the lower Mississippi Valley, the Ohio and Tennessee Valley, across the mid-Atlantic states, and particularly the northern part of the mid-Atlantic states through Pennsylvania on up into New Jersey and southern New England. You know, we're talking about areas getting several inches or more of rain. And I'm thinking out of this for much of the mid-Atlantic and northeast, it's going to be a solid couple of inches of rain in most places, and there'll probably be some isolated amounts that are a bit higher. The radars, and again, always a reminder here for those of you who are watching, if you're watching it live, it's 7:18, But if you're watching this on a replay, well, these radar images are from 7/18, so be sure to check your local radars by going to your local National Weather Service office page, and you can find that by going to weather.gov. There's the leading edge of the rain right now, just getting into southern New Jersey. It's in through much of eastern Maryland and the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula. This is the radar coming out of Mount Holly in New Jersey. And there is also going to be perhaps, I think, the possibility of some thunderstorms here tomorrow morning, and I think some of them could be rather strong. The Storm Prediction Center has a, this is for through tomorrow morning. Now, they seem to take the line of possible thunderstorms only up to about New York City. I might have gone a little bit further north than that. I think there's a chance that we could see some thunderstorms here tomorrow morning when the surface low is off the New Jersey coast, and we wind up with that really, really tight pressure gradient. And in fact, when we look at tomorrow's, they don't have us in any kind of risk, but I'll bring the, let me bring this down, and we'll bring up the, I'll get the Storm Prediction Center. Here we go. And we'll bring up the window here and go forward with our weather tonight. But here is their prediction for tomorrow. So a general area of thunderstorms from southern New Jersey all the way up into Maine. And it's right on the northern fringe of this is where you might be able to cool the atmosphere enough that somebody gets a heavy wet snowfall, and if it plays, you know, if you get the pieces to fall together, someone could wind up getting clobbered. The radar tonight is fairly busy. The areas in Virginia, North Carolina, except the western part of the state, pretty much covered rather solidly with rain and some heavier downpours. And then you get some rain that arcs back across western PA and goes back through Ohio and into parts of Indiana. All of this is lifting up to the northeast. So everything seems to be moving right along. And I figured I'd start off with the GFS. This is for tomorrow morning when everything is going a bit gangbusters. Now, the GFS has a limited area of snow on its northern fringe, and it doesn't really do a very good job with respect to elevation. But I wanted to show you this view, if only to illustrate the fact that you've got that big high, that 1030 high, sitting where it is in southwestern parts of Nova Scotia, and that's 998 low in northern Chesapeake Bay. Now, that's a 32 millibar difference over not that many miles from that high to the low. So you can see where the isobars are squeezed really, really tight from Boston to Cape Cod, southwest to southern New Jersey. This is where we see the tightest gradient and where the GFS models the strongest winds. I would note that the GFS has a bit more of a relaxed view with the wind. Every bit of sustained 20 to 30 and then 30 to 40 along the coast, and some of those stronger winds penetrating central and eastern Long Island. But what caught my eye today was the NAM model from earlier, which one of the things that the NAM model did, and this is where we're going to have to be a bit cautious here, but this is at 5 a.m. It really just kind of went I'm sorry, I got to go back one more run. So this is the run from earlier today. It's come off a bit from this, but one of the things that it did that struck me was the surface low at 5 a.m. is sitting in Chesapeake Bay. The isobars start getting stretched, and actually there could be two low centers, and I think there's some logic to this particular view here with what the model is showing. Why is it doing this to me? It keeps jumping to. I want to make sure I got the right run here. Okay, so there it is. This is at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. If you look closely in that red, there actually is a pinched off 995 low. And there's another low pressure that's back to the south and west of there. It's almost as if there's an occlusion of some kind, and at the point of occlusion, you're getting a low that's developing at that triple point. If that works out like it's modeled, that is going to create a band of 50 to 60 mile an hour winds just off the south shore of Long Island. And some of those strong winds are going to come into central and eastern Suffolk County tomorrow morning and make their way eventually toward the coast of Rhode Island and over the Nantucket, Hyannis, those islands. And of course, you got those strong winds too impacting the New Jersey shore. So I'm going to watch very closely for this. I think it's important to we'll keep an eye on the radar. The other thing that the model did earlier today was that it got very convective. It backed off a bit this afternoon on the in-between run, but I want to be careful about this because it does show at least some thunderstorms getting involved in all of this. And by the way, you're going to be seeing high tides coinciding with the period where we get the strongest winds and some of the heaviest rain. So it's going to make for a very problematic morning. It'll be, it's a 6 or 7 hour stretch where the weather gets really rough across New Jersey, southeastern New York, Long Island, and southern New England. Now, notice the NAM, by the way, because of its colder, the NAM, I think, oftentimes handles these sorts of things better when it comes to figuring out dynamic cooling better than the GFS does. It does show at least some strong hints that you could see some wet snows in parts of the the middle and upper Hudson Valley in the elevated areas, and then finding their way into Vermont and New Hampshire. The NAM snow map, which now I got to tell you quite honestly, looking at this snow map, I could never go for this. I could never forecast this. Okay, it just I don't. There's so little experience. The NAM wants to grind a lot of this out as frozen. Now I got to believe that it's I guess I wouldn't even necessarily feel comfortable forecasting this up in elevated areas. It's just that you don't see this very often this time of year. So how do you fall back? I like to think that you get as forecasters, we sort of have this file cabinet in our brain, and over the years you get all this experience when it comes to these storm systems. So you sort of go back and look and try to find an example. I mean, the examples that you have seeing something of this magnitude are few. I will just say this. This is basically a nowcast event for what's going on, what might happen in the elevated areas upstate and in New England. I can tell you that the Weather Service forecasts are nowhere near what the NAM is doing. And the GFS was also somewhat aggressive, but not quite like the NAM. But I think at this point you can't really go for much more than maybe a few inches in some of the higher elevations, and you just wait to watch and see what happens. I honestly think that you, as a forecaster, you really just have your hands tied with all of this. Now, with regards to rainfall, the total rainfall, again, we're looking at some areas. If we get into that, if that convective stuff is real, somebody's going to wind up with a fast 3+ inches. And you can see from the earlier run of the GFS, it actually indeed showed a rather wide area of 2 to 4 inch rain amounts from northeastern Virginia across much of central and south Jersey through Long Island into southeastern New England. If we go to the new run, it kind of cut that back, and at least cut it in half. It could be a day run, the in-between run phenomena, where sometimes that happens and it does lose things, but that's I'm not sure. The HRRR, which takes us to about noon tomorrow, does have some pockets of 2 inch plus amounts. So why don't we take a look at what the HRRR did with this? because this would be pretty interesting to see how it holds together and handles this. So starting with the present time, of course, and we're running with that rain reaching New York City by about midnight and getting into Long Island and the Hudson Valley. Notice the snow that the HRRR has. This is for the western parts of the Catskills. It doesn't really get into that convective stuff that the NAM had, just waves of rain that move on through. And in terms of the pressure gradient here, it does tighten the gradient here enough. And you've got the, a fairly extensive area tomorrow morning. Takes a little longer for it to get going, but it's got an extensive area of 40-knot sustained winds touching the New Jersey coast, the south shore of Long Island, out to the east end, and even into Long Island Sound. I think all the warnings that are up, be it high wind, the coastal flood warnings, are justified. And by the way, with the low, if it gets pinched back this way and takes a while, I think this puts the morning high tide is going to be problematic for sure, because you're going to have this gradient tightening up as the tide rolls in. But if we wind up hanging this back a little bit, it could mean for a second high tide problem later tomorrow afternoon over from New York City, the New York City, northernmost New Jersey coast up near Sandy Hook, so say northern Monmouth County, eastward to off southeastern New England. The HRRR only takes us out 18 hours. It does show a fair amount of precip, so when the HRRR with regards to snow, at least through tomorrow afternoon, I could kind of go for this idea, where it sort of has this, streaky look to it inside, with some pockets of 3, 4, 5 inches and some very small areas, again, elevation driven through the Catskills, and also in the western part of Massachusetts and the Berkshires, and headed up into southern Vermont and New Hampshire. So at least during the day tomorrow, I don't have any real serious problem with what the models are showing here. So let's at this point, let's get to a wider shot. We'll get the full U.S. view. We'll bring up the new GFS and take a look at where we're going with all of this weather-wise. So of course, this system, again, not a very deep low, but you've got this very strong high to the north, tight pressure gradient. It's accomplishing the same sort of thing that a stronger storm I'm sorry, I'm just kind of losing my train of thought. It would cause the same sort of thing that a stronger storm would cause, even if it had a weaker high to work with. Okay, so that lifts up northeast. I think weather conditions improve on Sunday throughout the mid-Atlantic and on up into southern New England. We get another disturbance. The second trough comes through with maybe a couple of showers Monday morning. Then we're dry Tuesday. A dying cold front on Wednesday sets up another frontal system for Thursday and Friday, which brings some showers through. And then that front stalls out. Now, one of the trends I've been noticing is that the GFS has been trending eastward with this system for next weekend. It's a little bit more offshore. That may be an error. It may not. It may be rushing the trough a bit to the east. In the lower right, you can also see that the GFS does develop this system in the tropics and actually makes it into a hurricane. I think it's way too soon at all to speculate on any of this regarding Oscar. For one thing, you've got the calendar working against you. The other thing is, honestly, I haven't really given it a good look. I've been very focused on what's going on with the weather for tonight and tomorrow, that I just really have not spent a whole lot of time looking at it. I can bring up. Let's bring up go to NHC. They still haven't done anything with it other than to say that there's a 90% chance of this developing. I haven't honestly even looked at the satellite loop of it, so I think we can do that together. and see if anything's happening. And I got the wide view here. I mean, it does look a little bit better organized. It's hard for me to tell on the wide shot. The Hurricane Center is going to come out with their update within the next 20-25 minutes, so we'll defer to them. Now, with respect to the upper air in the longer term, I mentioned yesterday that it seems like we're moving chess pieces around over the next 10 days to a couple of weeks. We've got this trough in the east that lifts out, a bit of a flat ridge there toward the end of next week, with another trough that swings into the Midwest. Looks like the trough axis is probably at around 90 or 95. You can see what it does with whatever tropical system it develops there. This is going to be at a point where it looks like it would likely be caught by this west-southwest flow and get carried out to the northeast as another trough swings into the eastern part of the United States. So at least from the standpoint of what the models are showing in the longer term, we are seeing a general attempt at troughing into the eastern part of the United States through the next couple of weeks. Weather systems will continue to move along, and we will have some shots of chilly air that will be followed by some brief warm-ups, and then the next shot of chilly air. By the way, really fast and mentioned, I know Scott Brewer asked me about this. He's at a Halloween party. I saw him on the chat board earlier. Judah Cohen, Dr. Judah Cohen tweeted earlier today that Siberian snow cover has grown by 50% in the last number of days, given the pattern that has evolved, and that may give the Siberian snow cover. We've been talking about that the last couple of on and off the last several days, that the models were growing more bullish with additional snow for the last 10 days of the month and going into the first days of the month of November. Across North America, it looks like we're going to get some more snow, although I did notice yesterday that the snow cover in North America looks like it has decreased somewhat, and that could be, some of that is because of the ridge building in the western part of the United States. As far as additional snows in Eurasia are concerned for the next 10 days, does look pretty busy throughout much of Siberia, and actually even the southern flank of this, going down to almost 40 degrees north, is picking up some snow cover, and that is significant. I know that the southern flank here is important as far as gaining snow cover during that 5-week period that Dr. Cohen watches with regards to snow cover growth. So to see this on the GFS for you Siberian snow cover fans is a positive. What I'll do is I'm going to come up full screen here, and I'm just going to check real quick. Let me see if I can pull his tweet up and see exactly what he said. So give me 1 second here. It was a very busy day today with everything that's going on here, so I kind of had my hands full, and I didn't really get a chance to look at this. So I'm trying to see what color is he using on his map, on his graph. All right, so let's see if we can figure this out together. I'm going to say it's the black one, because that's where it stops. Okay, all right, so hang on here. He did put up a chart, so I think we can take a look at it. All right, let me find the window. There it is. Okay, so this was on, this is Dr. Judah Cohen's, he's on Twitter as Judah Cohen, and he's tracking here the Eurasian snow cover extent going back to 2009. So I think the black line is snow cover growth this year, and you'll notice that it was running at the bottom of the pack. It has now turned, sharply higher here, where it's still sitting at the second lowest, but at least it's kind of gone up to be in this cluster where a large number of the years lie, and with still a handful of days left in the month to look at. I believe this goes through date-wise. Let me see if I can see on the scale, what we're talking about in terms of dates on the bottom. Okay, so the last date here is the 25th. So we don't have today on here, nor will obviously we have the next 6 days to add on to this. But there's actually time, if the GFS is right with the additional snow, that we could wind up making a fast and furious finish here and finish on the upper end of snow cover growth during the month of October. So pretty interesting development here for you winter weather lovers, if that's something that you consider. I know there are some people who are very skeptical of this, and well, that's how it works. There is skepticism, and you try your theory, and sometimes it works, and usually, I've said this many times as well. You get to a point where you think you have something figured out, and what happens? Something comes along and disproves it, and you find yourself starting from scratch all over again. So, in summary, with respect to the nor'easter here, it's going to be a rough number of hours, about a 6-hour period tomorrow morning where things are going to be rough from New Jersey to southern New England, and then that gradually moves over to southeastern New England later in the morning and in the afternoon. And then after it all lifts up northward, weather conditions should improve on Sunday. And then we look ahead to next week. Nick Cortese, thank you very much with the hitting super chat tonight. I just saw that, and I really appreciate it. A few of my regulars on my Facebook page on Long Island tonight pointing out how incredibly calm things were tonight, which was kind of interesting. We're not even in the gradient. We're nowhere near getting into the gradient yet, so it's very, very calm and quiet, and just kind of waiting for that surface low to work its way northward. Timothy Veltman, I've always felt it was better to have both Siberian and Canadian snow cover to be high, so the cold air masses would develop and sustain themselves in reaching our area. Well, definitely, it certainly doesn't hurt. And I think if you look back to last year, the snow cover growth in Canada was aggressive and early, and it definitely played a role in the early start to the winter. But let's see what the next 6 days bring with regards to both the North America side and the Eurasia side. Okay, little change to thank you, Anthony Orr, who just checked on the fact that the Hurricane Center is reporting little change in organization that has occurred with the system in the Atlantic, but it is producing tropical storm force winds east of the center, and the likelihood that a tropical depression or a tropical storm or a subtropical storm will form sometime in the next 24 hours or so. Just running through everything here. William Huber, did I look at the temperature in Greenland down to minus 35, minus 40? That's really cold for this time of year. And they got a lot of fresh snow. One of the things about looking at the snow cover maps or the snowfall forecast maps from the weather models, if you look at Greenland almost any time of the year, including the summertime, it's always snowing up there. And there's always this sort of solid, you get all the purples and the whites, and it's got to be brutal. There are folks that live in Greenland, and boy, you've got to have fortitude to survive that particular climate. By the way, did notice on my drive the last couple of days, actually in terms of autumn color, seeing some color changing and some leaf turning in the Hudson Valley. it's at least closer to where it should normally turn, but it actually is even running a bit late down in southern areas, in spite of the fact that the weather has been quite chilly over the last, well, since the middle part of the month. And we, having a different type of autumn this year because of the fact that we've had so much rain. We'll see now if over the next couple of weeks how good our color is here. I know Mirtha Gunther was you were commenting about how nice things look out your way as the leaves are coming down, and I don't burn my leaves, by the way. I wind up with about 130 to 150 bags of leaves, and I bag them all. Okay, and I have done that for the past 30 years. It is a long, tedious process, and last year, because of the fact that the winter, the summer lasted well into mid-November, and then we flipped the switch into the ice box. The fall cleanup didn't get done until March, and then it was tough because I had snow cover, so I actually had to wait to April. We started doing it in late March, and then in April. So we had to do our fall cleanup in spring. Kill two birds with one stone, because if I do a fall cleanup, then I have to do a spring cleanup for all the stuff that comes down from the winter. So I wound up doing them both together. All right, so we're going to leave it here, folks, on this Friday night. I think we got everything covered. Let me just very fast mention the Patreon platform. There has been and there will be additional coverage going on the Patreon platform through all of this, and then some, as we move on deeper into the month of as we move into the month of November and get closer and closer to December. So just remember that you can have exclusive coverage, plus the fact that you can have exclusive videos that I'm doing just for Patreon members. It's a $2 a month subscription. I'm going to put the link up for the platform on the board here, on the chat board. So take a look at it. I know a number of you have joined, and I appreciate it greatly, and I think you're enjoying it. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. Also should mention, too, that my app, I mentioned that I am going to have a free app, and this is going to work well for folks that are in the New Jersey to southern New England. I got to take this. This didn't work right. Okay, if you're in the New Jersey, Long Island, New York City, Hudson Valley, southern New England area, this app might work for you. It will have my forecast on it, my daily forecast on it. Plus, it'll be you'll have some of my website posts on it as well, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. So when that comes out, it's in the hands of Google and Apple right now, so we're just waiting for their approval. And as soon as I have it, I will let you guys know. And if you're in my area, I think you will like it very much. So, so much for that. We'll just let it go at this point. Have a great evening and a great weekend. I'm going to be taking some time off over the next week. I've got some personal stuff to take care of, and I will be doing I will try to do some daily live streams, but if we get a stretch where the weather gets a little bit on the quiet side, I might take a break for a day, and then I'll pick it up the next day, and we'll I need a breather, okay? You can tell when I have trouble completing sentences. I've had a long day. My colleague Joe Rayo is out today, so I'm doing his shift, his stuff, and mine together, which means I'm juggling a lot, and it's tough. So by the time we get to this point of the night after a day like today, I'm running out of things to say, and I'm having difficulty speaking. Justin, hi from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Welcome aboard. We do have a number of folks that watch from your part of the world, and we welcome you to my YouTube channel. Do hit the subscribe button, which is free, by the way, so this way you get notifications of these daily live streams that I'm doing. The pink Justin Y. This is another Justin, the pink sheep hater. It's 47 in Stamford, Connecticut. Yes. What is this pink sheep hater? What is a pink sheep hater? Not sure. Okay, Bill Huber, thanks for reminding me. Joe is out today, which was something we didn't anticipate, but because of the storm, they're moving him around, so he's going to be working tomorrow morning. So that's why I'm soloing. So I'm going to see how I feel after 9 o'clock. I may jump on Facebook, on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and I'll if I feel up to it. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to just wait till morning. I still have to have my dinner. That's another thing. I'm starting to crash and burn because I haven't had anything to eat pretty much since early this morning. Justin, always subscribe, but was wondering why I wasn't getting the notifications. Justin, I don't know why that is. I mean, sometimes, I don't know. Today, for example, I noticed I didn't get a bunch of my notifications until 2 or 3 o'clock, and I got a notification that I was live on Facebook last night. So go figure. And that's my own page that's giving me a notification. I don't even know what that's about. Why I'm getting my own notification is beyond me. But it was also kind of weird today too, because I noticed that the Facebook app logged itself off several times, and I had to log back in. So who knows? But double check. It could be a Google problem or a YouTube problem. I did notice that there was one point where YouTube, I think back a few days ago, just kind of crashed for a while. I'm not sure why. I didn't see too much press about it, but it is weird. So, but you're not alone. I think it happens to all of us one way or another. All right, folks, have a great evening. I got to have some dinner, okay? Take care, and we'll see you at some point over the weekend and during next week.